The gunship Marita Ann arrives under naval escort at Holbowl in Cork. The vessel docked at 8:35 in the evening. Pictures of the event were on the RTÉ 9 o'clock bulletin. Electronic News Gathering Equipment, or ENG, the new technology used by RTÉ, had a dramatic baptism in Cork. ENG was also used to send back pictures from the Kerry Babies Tribunal in Tralee each day. The Sony Betacam version used by RTÉ is the most modern form available. The ENG video camera system is replacing the film camera, which RTÉ had been using since the television service began in 1962. One of the main disadvantages about the use of film is that it had to be physically transported from the outside location back to Dublin. At times, RTÉ personnel have done this function. In extreme cases, we've used planes and helicopters. At times too, we've made use of taxis. And on that score, my colleague down in Cork, Tommie Gorman, tells an amusing incident about an attempt he made once to send film from a remote area by taxi back to Dublin. The taxi left at 2:30 in the afternoon. 6 hours later, it hadn't arrived at RTÉ headquarters. Eventually, the newsroom in Dublin received a phone call from an amused but perplexed taxi driver. He had been in Dublin for 2 hours. He was lost and he couldn't find his way to Donnybrook. The most regular source of this transport has been CIE. While film was in use, the location of CIE stations and depots and train and bus schedules were crucial factors influencing when pictorial items from the regions were shown on news bulletins. Many's the friendly CIE staff member had an important role in helping to get news film from the country to RTÉ's processing laboratories in Dublin. Jerry Murray is a technician in the new RTÉ studio complex in Sligo. Part of his work involves sending ENG pictures from the northwest back to Dublin. This is just one of many centres in the regions where ENG can be injected back to Donnybrook. There is no processing involved. The problems of physically transporting pictures back to Dublin is gone.
It's been in use in RTÉ for some time, but with the installation of this unit here in Sligo, we are now about to complete the circuit of Ireland. We have cameras already in operation in Dublin, in Belfast, in Cork and in Galway. We will soon have them in operation also in Limerick and in Waterford.
What precisely will it mean for RTÉ coverage?
Well, it's changing over from the old system of film cameras to the electronic video camera, which means that we can get coverage of events back to Dublin at in a much faster time. The pictures come back directly from injection points all around the country by microwave length to Dublin. With film, it had to come back physically by road or by rail, and that meant that events that happened, say 50 or 60 miles outside Dublin, could not be transmitted on the same day as they happened in most cases. Now we have the facility to shoot an event even in a remote part of the country and have it on our television bulletins on the same evening.
The new studio in Sligo, RTÉ's northwestern base, was officially opened yesterday, and during the function local press members were briefed on ENG and how it's going to develop the television news service.
The future is quite exciting as well. That is the possibilities of having live pictures brought into news bulletins from the scene of major stories. This is done by the use of a van with a small dish transmitter on the roof, which can lock in to transmitters in view in any part of the country and transmit those pictures live back into bulletin. It's also possible to cover press conferences in, say, in major centres in Dublin, in a room perhaps, by the use of small transmitters that would transmit the picture from a window to the top of a van, and from there again to another transmitter and back into the main studios in Dublin.
Also in Sligo yesterday, RTÉ's Director of News, Wesley Boyd, made presentations to two local cameramen who have provided a mute film service from the region for over 20 years. Jim Eccles, staff photographer with the Sligo Champion, and Donegal journalist and photographer Josie McGarrigle are household names in the region. The potential of electronic news gathering equipment and the implications it has for television news service are being discussed at a gathering in RTÉ's Galway office today.
very much more self-contained.
The idea was that local newspaper journalists would be told about the speed with which the new ENG cameras are capable of bringing news pictures to the screen. But as it turned out, the camera crew had just returned from Athenry with pictures of a protest which was actually taking place at the time. At the centre of the row is this colonnade of mature trees, which stands in front of a section of the historic town wall, which now forms part of the local GAA pitch boundary. 3 of the 12 trees were chopped down before the residents, the town's community council and the Athenry Project Society realised what was happening, and they immediately protested to the GAA club and set about getting a court injunction to save the trees. This evening the group says they're absolutely determined to resist what they see as the vandalising of the area.
The trees that have been knocked down behind us have formed a very important part of the landscape along here, and that we're trying at the moment to get an injunction out to stop the GAA from taking down any further trees. In so doing, they've obviously destroyed the chicks' nests and they destroyed the landscape and destroyed the actual entrance into the town.